The city of Oakhaven, a concrete sprawl that owed as much to the fever dreams of a restless, drug-addled architect as it did to the industrial machinery grinding its teeth in the dawn, was currently suffering from a localized shortage of gravity. Arthur Penhaligon, a man whose life was measured out not in years, but in the cataloging of trivialities, he was an archivist for the city's Department of Unremembered Things, sat on the 4:12 a.m. train. He was clutching a briefcase containing the singular physical embodiment of a Tuesday afternoon that had occurred in 1974, which he had successfully captured in a jar. The train was not merely moving through the tunnel, it was tunneling through the collective psyche of the eastern seaboard. Outside the scratched, graffiti-stained windows, the tunnel walls didn't reflect the harsh, flickering fluorescent bulbs of the interior. Instead, they displayed scenes of American myth, a silent, silver-screen parade of cowboys, stockbrokers, and weeping housewives. Arthur ignored the ghosts. He was focused on his own reflection. His reflection, however, was not behaving. It was drinking coffee while he sat with empty hands, and it was looking at him with an expression of profound historical disappointment. Arthur stepped off the train into the heart of the city, a place where the Starbucks signage had begun to glow with a strange bioluminescent hunger. He walked toward the Gilded Bean, a cafe where the espresso was roasted with the beans of certainty, and reality was served with a side of doubt. There, sitting at a corner table, was Clara. Clara was a woman of precise geometries, a mathematician who had calculated that the world was too rigid, and in response, had begun to untether herself from the laws of physics. She was, quite literally, fraying at the edges. Where her silhouette met the air, there was a faint, static-like shimmering, a pixelated disintegration. "You're late," she said. Her voice didn't come from her lips. It arrived as a localized breeze, carrying the scent of ozone and old library books. "The train stopped to pick up a passenger from the Great Depression," Arthur apologized, sliding into the seat. "It's a long commute, Clara. The timeline is congested." Clara laughed, and as she did, a small flock of origami birds flew out of her hair, fluttering toward the ceiling, where they dissolved into ink stains. "You still chase the facts, Arthur. You want to archive the world. Don't you realize that America is the most magical place on Earth because it refuses to be real? It is a performance. We are just the audience." As they argued, the street outside transformed. A vendor appeared, pushing a cart that smelled of cotton candy and radioactive waste. He was selling memories, genuine bottled American memories. He had jars labeled "The First Time You Felt Uncool," "The Sound of Your Mother's Key in the Lock," and "The Infinite Potential of a Lost Weekend." Arthur stood up, his professional instincts overriding his caution. "That is contraband," he declared, approaching the vendor. "History cannot be sold on a street corner." The vendor, a man with 3 eyes, 2 that blinked in unison and 1 that seemed to weep golden oil, smiled. "Mr. Penhaligon, you curate the dead, I provide the living. This country operates on the alchemy of forgetting. If we remembered every heartbreak, every broken promise, the continent would sink into the Atlantic by noon." Clara drifted toward them, her feet barely touching the pavement. She looked at the jar labeled "The Infinite Potential of a Lost Weekend." "If I consume that," she whispered, "will I become whole again? Or will I cease to be entirely?" Arthur reached out, his hand passing through the vendor's coat as if it were smoke. "Clara, don't. That is a trap. It's not magic, it's just the high-fructose corn syrup of the soul." The world tilted. A skyscraper nearby groaned, its steel beams bending like wet noodles, turning into a massive frozen waterfall of iron. People on the street stopped walking, their shadows detaching from their heels and continuing to walk toward their respective jobs, leaving the people behind to dissolve into puddles of color. Arthur realized then that he couldn't choose between the archive and the hallucination. They were the same thing. The history of America was the magic of it, the way it constantly reinvented its own failure into a triumph. He grabbed Clara's hand. Her skin felt like warm, living starlight. He pulled the jar of "The First Time You Felt Uncool" from the vendor's cart and smashed it. "The first time you felt uncool" from the vendor's cart and smashed it on the pavement. A wave of collective teenage awkwardness washed over the city. It was a grounding force. Gravity returned with a vengeance. The skyscraper straightened. The shadows clicked back onto their owner's heels. The vendor vanished, leaving only a puff of glittery, bureaucratic red tape. Arthur and Clara stood on the sidewalk, the morning sun finally rising. A harsh, uncaring, yet beautiful American sun. Clara was no longer fraying. She was solid, heavy, and undeniably, painfully real. She looked at her hands, then at Arthur. "You ruined the magic," she said, though there was no malice in it. "I archived the moment," Arthur corrected. "I kept it from disappearing." They began to walk, just two figures in a city that was, once again, mundane, predictable, and utterly, impossibly miraculous. Behind them, the city breathed, waiting for the next person to believe in something so hard that the fabric of reality would tear open again, just to see what was hiding on the other side. "Where to?" Clara asked. "To the archives," Arthur said, taking her hand. "We have a lot of work to do. The world is getting too real again, and someone has to keep the ghosts happy."